Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Meet the Candidates. I'm your host Sean Leary and it is election season. It is currently October 2024, so quickly the election is coming upon us, and today we are going to be doing the County Commissioners, the Plymouth County Commissioners, and we are joined by today Jared Valanzola.
Sean, a pleasure to be here this evening with you folks and looking forward to talking about the race, talking about what we do at the county, and really appreciate the work you guys are doing. It's important that folks are able to learn about us, make informed decisions. So really grateful for you to take the time and put this program together. Happy to be here.
Wonderful, thank you. That's really kind of you to say. So let's get into it. Who exactly is Jared Valanzola?
Thank you. Well, I'm a lifelong resident of Plymouth County. I grew up in Rockland. I live in Plymouth now. I have worked professionally in sales for the last 10 or so years. When I graduated college, I went to Massasoit Community College for an associate's degree, earned my bachelor's degree from Bridgewater State. I then went to work in the State House for former Senator and now current Weymouth Mayor Bob Hedlund, who of course represented Marshfield for over 2 decades, and also had the privilege of working with now Senator O'Connor there as well. So I was really able to build and foster those great relationships. Over the years, my civic experience has included the Rockland Planning Board, chairman of the Rockland Charter Commission, as well as a member of the Rockland School Building Committees. From there, I've also civically served as Grand Knight of the Rockland Knights of Columbus. I'm also in the Rockland Fraternal Order of Eagles, the Rockland Lions Club, as well as the East Bridgewater Commercial Club and the Old Colony Sportsmen's Association. So I like to keep busy. Some other little fun facts about me: I'm certainly a big fan of sports. I'm a Red Sox season ticket holder. I was a Tampa Bay Buccaneers season ticket holder from 2020 to 2023 when Tom Brady was there. And I'm a huge music fan. I love going to music festivals and traveling, especially to see Paul McCartney, who I've had the privilege of meeting as well. So that's a little bit about me. Certainly in 2020, the people of Plymouth County gave me a great honor and what has been a real pleasure for these last 4 years to be able to serve as a county commissioner. Of the last 2 as chair, and I know we're going to get into some of what we do and what we've been doing, but it really has been an honor. In all of my other roles, I've really enjoyed being able to do town-centric stuff. What I've really loved about the county and being able to serve as a commissioner is being able to take that passion for public service and work with other communities, work with Marshfield and work with the other 26 member communities from Brockton to Plymouth to Mattapoisett to Hull. It's a big county and it covers a lot of territory. But we've been able to foster a lot of great relationships with folks, and I know we're going to get into that more detailed.
Yeah, I think that's a great segue into what I was going to ask next is, a little Civics 101, what is the role of the county commissioner?
Yeah, so the county commissioner is the executive branch of county government. So of course, the state has a governor and the legislature is the legislative branch and president and Congress. Town has the board of selectmen or select board and town meeting. We have the county commissioners and we are the executive board of Plymouth County. We are a regional services government. Now, candidly, in other parts of the country, the counties have a lot of power and they usually service your schools and police and fire. We don't do that in Massachusetts. We still have local rule, of course, as many folks know. But Plymouth County has still been able to maintain an incredible amount of services on a shoestring budget. We currently run a 4-H extension program, and a big shout out to Molly Volmer and her staff. We currently run a parking program. Shout out to Jeff Welch and his staff there. And we currently run the Plymouth County OPEB Trust Fund, which is one of the best performing other post-employment benefit trust funds in the country. And of course, we have the Registry of Deeds and the courthouses. As I occasionally quip, it might be some of the unfun stuff of government, but it's important functions that I think often go overlooked. How important is the Registry of Deeds? Well, obviously, private property ownership, we need to keep track of who owns it, right?
Right.
That's a very important thing. I can't walk up to your house and go, this is mine now, this belongs to me. So obviously the registry does that, but we've been able to, over the last 40 years, but obviously and a lot more recently, been able to really put together a distinct mission for what the county is, which is to really help the member communities, and candidly some outside. Our parking department is serving not only municipalities in Plymouth County, but it's serving government entities like Bridgewater State University and towns and communities outside of the county as well. We joke we have a handful of communities in the Berkshires that utilize our services. So we call that Plymouth County West out there in the Berkshires. But and I do want to really acknowledge the staff of Plymouth County. I'm very lucky as a commissioner. I get to talk about what they do, but they really do make the county tick. So I do want to give them a plug and thank them for their work. Lastly, and I think most impactfully, and I know Marshfield Cam has been in a few presentations, but we have been able to successfully manage 2 federal COVID relief grant funds. First, $90 million in CARES Act funding, and now $100 million in ARPA funding. And to broad stroke that, we were able to manage the CARES Act at less than 1% administrative cost, the lowest in the nation. We delivered 50% more dollars to our member communities than like-sized communities outside of Plymouth County. So Marshfield received 50% more dollars than a community of its similar size in Massachusetts, and we did it more quickly. So my quip is, you always hear the expression, good, quick, and cheap. You can have 2 out of 3. Somehow Plymouth County produced 3 out of 3 with CARES, and we're continuing to do that with ARPA. And we believe that that's an important thing for folks to know, because we're elected by the same people. We are accountable to the people of Plymouth County. We're local, we are in your communities, and we have a more intimate knowledge of the needs of the communities. And it's candidly easier. It's 27 communities, it's 26 towns in one city to build those relationships. No offense to our friends in the Commonwealth, they have their work out for them. They have major cities, they have other issues that they need to tackle. That's the importance of county government and the importance of having 3 commissioners who are very attentive to the needs of the communities.
Now, what would you say that you bring to the table specifically in your role?
I have a lot of great experience. Again, I cut my teeth in the State House working for then Senator Hedlund. I'm a collaborator. I don't believe in being flashy or making a lot of noise, but I do believe in getting the job done. What I bring to the table is a willingness to listen and a willingness to be able to learn and acknowledge, but also acknowledge that some of the folks I serve with, and I serve with 2 other people, and we're all equal, as I remind them. I am the chairman, but I run a meeting and I set the agenda. But we are 3 equally elected folks, and we're equally elected with the other folks that are elected countywide. It's bringing people together and getting people at this same table. One of the projects that we're working on, you're going to start seeing more about it, is a food policy council. Plymouth County was approached by Old Colony Planning Council to pursue a grant for a municipal vulnerability grant to explore food hubs. I first pivoted to an unlikely source, the Sheriff's Department, because they have the Plymouth County farm that they lease from the county. And from that conversation was born this fantastic collaboration between the County of Plymouth, the Plymouth County Sheriff's Department, Old Colony Planning Council, the Town of Plymouth, and this is going to expand into Marshfield and other communities, but the South Shore Community Action Council, the Marion Institute, and it's just so many different folks at the table who are helping to tackle things like food insecurity. So spaces where you ordinarily wouldn't think the county would be in, or even a sheriff's department or a planning council, but because we had this idea and we saw this vision, we were able to put those pieces together and sit them at the table and really begin to learn and understand, because a lot of those folks are doing that work. I think the best thing I also bring to the table is I know what I know, and I also know what I don't know. And I certainly don't know how to tackle something like food insecurity. But working together with many different partners and bringing them together is able to create something that is going to manifest itself into really addressing a significant need for folks in Plymouth County. And candidly, it could serve as a model not only for the rest of the Commonwealth, but nationwide. So bringing those ideas to the table, not immediately dismissing ideas, but looking for ways and avenues to make it work, and acknowledging that I and the county as a whole may not be able to go it alone. It's recognizing that there are others that are operating in spaces that they may know more about. Let's get them together, let's get them at the table. And candidly, I'm very proud of the partnership that we have with our legislators. I have personal relationships with pretty much the entire delegation of Plymouth County, Republican and Democrat, and I'm really proud of that, because I think they have seen what my work is, and they understand that I'm not here, again, for headlines or any sort of fanfare, but to get the job done for the people that elected me.
Right. Now, this is the end of your first term, correct?
Yes.
So this will be, if you're elected, your second term. Is there any lessons that you've learned in your first term that you might go about perhaps differently in your second term?
Well, I'm always open for learning. I think candidly, one of the things that I've certainly learned in my first term is, again, to continue to hone the ability to understand what I know and what I don't know. Thankfully, I came into this term with some prior elected experience, and I think that helped benefit my adjustment to being a commissioner, because I know and I understand that we need to collaborate. And understanding that the 2 people that I serve with may have different ideas than I do. And they have their own projects and they can talk about them. They have their own things that they work on. So for me, it is continuing to grow and improve for myself on how can I be supportive of what they want to do, maybe more so. Maybe I don't agree with it. Maybe I can try and understand why I don't, or maybe I can learn more about it and see if there are things I can agree with. One of the things that I'm really grateful for is that as a board, the three of us get along very well. We collaborate well. Certainly we have disagreements, we all do, right? But we work well together and we collaborate on things that really do matter to the people of the county. So going into a second term, it would really be to continue to learn and grow from those experiences and continue to foster those relationships, not only with the legislators, but with the local elected officials as well.
Now, are there any perhaps chief concerns that you would like to address?
Yeah, one of the things for Plymouth County that is always front of mind for me, we are the only government entity in Massachusetts that cannot tax. Now, by no means am I advocating that we can tax, but it's important to note that because we can't ask for overrides, right? So a handful of communities in the county and in the Commonwealth have asked for overrides. Hanover asked for an override and it failed, right? So they needed to cut $8 million from their budget. The county of Plymouth doesn't have that luxury. We need to stay within our means. We need to live within our means. We can't be profligate with our spending. We can't be profligate with payroll and with personnel. And again, that's why you'll hear me continually sprinkling, complimenting our employees, because top to bottom, from our administrator to our maintenance folks to the people at the registry, everyone in between, they work so hard and they do such a great amount of work for the county of Plymouth. Our budget has not grown in a decade, over 10 years. I mean, it is pretty much vacillated between $10 to $14 million a year. Most of our revenue is derived from real estate transactions at the Registry of Deeds. So when you have a big refinance boom, as we had at the beginning of my first term, when you have a big refinance boom, we had quite a few funds over and above projections. We smartly banked those monies because now what has happened? Obviously, rates are up. The market still has a very low inventory, and I work professionally in real estate, so I think that's another thing I bring to the table running for re-election is professionally working in real estate, which is our main source of income, candidly. It's those recording fees. So we've had some down times, and we've trimmed the budget by about $3 million. But it's important, again, always front of mind is the revenue situation of Plymouth County and addressing that and looking for different ways to address that. We've partnered with a development company to explore a 100-acre parcel that we have in the town of Plymouth. Part of the agreement with them is some revenue sharing with the other member communities. So Marshfield and other communities would be a part of sharing in whatever revenue could come from that. But candidly, getting the county's finances in a position where we're able to be more nimble. There are a lot of other issues that the communities are asking us to address. Once we can get the budgetary situation in hand, and it is in hand, I mean, we're in great shape. We have a balanced budget every year. We haven't had to do layoffs. We haven't had to do anything of that sort because we've been prudent with our financial planning. But we are launching a pond management bureau that communities have asked us to look into. So this is something that will be driving even more forward in my second term. It doesn't make sense for a community to buy a piece of equipment that they're going to use once and then set aside for a couple of years, right?
Right.
So how about the county buy that piece of equipment? The county can keep the inventory of where that equipment is because, sometimes candidly, Bridgewater might have a piece of equipment that they use once that could come in handy in Marshfield. But would Marshfield know Bridgewater has that? No, or vice versa. If the county of Plymouth has it, and again, this is to keep ponds clear and keep waterways and other areas clean, the county of Plymouth will keep that inventory. Another thing I would like to start looking into, and this is a lofty goal, would be school transportation. That is a major cost for our member communities. So to begin to, whether it be the county of Plymouth having a transportation company, I'm doing quotes there, or at least cobbling together a handful of communities and handling the procurement. So that way these towns aren't competing against each other, because that's the irony. The towns are competing against each other for the services of these transportation companies for school buses, right?
Right.
If the county of Plymouth is bidding it, now it's these school bus companies competing against each other for the member communities in the county of Plymouth. So looking into that issue is another one that I would really love to address. And then thirdly, a countywide grant writer, again, to the point of making decisions. When I was first elected, had some money set aside to hire a grant writer for the county. We had some other issues come up, and I sacrificed it candidly, to get ARPA off the ground. We needed some money to get ARPA off the ground. So I would like to explore that again.
That's great. So I like to shift over into, what it's like running for office.
Sure.
So running a campaign, how do you go about that? How do you go from I think I might run for office to now full-fledged, you're running for office? What's that process look like?
Yeah, it's a big process. It's a big decision-maker process. I'm unmarried, so I did not have to consult a wife. But that usually is a part of the decision-making process is your family. And my parents and grandparents and other extended relatives were first consulted, but you consult your family first. And then you really start looking into the dynamics of the race. When I ran 4 years ago, county government's something that I've always been interested in. I went to Sacred Heart High School in Kingston, so I've had a lot of friends all over the county, candidly. So being able to serve at the county level was really intriguing to me because I truly believe in the full potential of what county government can be, both in Plymouth County but in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. But getting to that point, you then make some phone calls. I called and spoke to the sheriff. I called and spoke to the district attorney. I called my state representative friend. My state representative at the time was Rep. DeCoste, and the rest of the legislative delegation, just to put the idea out there and see what their reaction was. And candidly, to a T. And I think this again gets into the relationships that I've been able to build both from working in the State House and now these last 4 years working as a commissioner. To a T, they're all very supportive. So that's usually the decision-making process. Now, when I ran 4 years ago, we collected signatures and we began that process, and then COVID hit, right? We had a worldwide pandemic that shut down society for a good amount of time. So that certainly was a major change in how we campaigned and how we had to go about it. Some of it was a welcome change, I guess. It did change some things. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I've really enjoyed this cycle is you see so many events that are back. I know the Rotary had their flea market at the fairgrounds recently, but it's getting back out there and meeting people and being able to introduce yourself, put a face to a name, knock on their door and leave a card and say, I'm running for this office. And really educating them. A lot of folks aren't fully aware of what county commissioners do. That's why, again, I'm grateful that you're taking the time for this. But it's educating them on what we do, and again, educating them on what the potential is. And I think there's a lot of potential for the county, and it's come a long way. I mean, we've done a great job collaborating together. Treasurer O'Brien and my colleagues who have worked really hard to get Plymouth County to be in the position it's in. And so getting to that point to run for office, and it's tough. I mean, for a county commissioner, you need to collect 1,000 certified signatures. And naturally, that comes during the winter, so it's cold. Remember Super Bowl Sunday, I was outside the Market Basket in Hanover, right? And it was, 32 degrees and sunny. It was a nice sunny day, but it was cold. Collecting signatures on Super Tuesday outside Marshfield High School, where it poured most of the day, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the fun part of it, but it is fun because you get to meet people, you get to interact with them. And candidly, the last bit of this, and I think it's interesting, is a lot of folks are surprised to learn when you're an incumbent, you still have to collect signatures to get on the ballot. I go, I'm still accountable to you. I'm accountable to you every 4 years. That's my term. Mm-hmm. And I still have to go through the same process every 4 years or whatever the term is. But for me as a commissioner, it's every 4. And I like that holds us accountable. And I think that it's an important part of the process. So that's sort of the beginning and the end. And then, of course, you get to Election Day. And, Ronald Reagan is my political hero. And he quipped when he was done running for governor of California. He said, boy, that was a 9-month campaign. Thank God that's over. And somebody looked at him and said, well, now you get to be the governor of California for 4 years. so it's to say that you get to the end of the campaign, you take a sigh of relief, and then you get the privilege, and it really is a privilege and an honor to serve as a commissioner. So it's been great these last 4 years. It is different running as an incumbent because you still have to do the job. Right. I still have to go to the commissioner meetings. I still have to do the job of being a commissioner as well as running the campaign. So that part is a balancing act, but I believe I've handled it well.
Wonderful. So let's transition a little bit more into the fun questions here.
Sure, I like fun.
Get to know you a little bit better. I wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of talk about meeting Paul McCartney, as you mentioned.
Of course. So one of the things that I love again, like I talked about before, I try to find creative ways to get to an objective. So I'm a huge Beatles fan, and this is when I worked for then Senator Bob Hedlund. So Senator Hedlund, then Senator Hedlund, and now Senator O'Connor has picked up the ball on this, file animal protection legislation. And they've been doing that for many years. banning the bull hooks on elephants and a whole handful of other pieces of important legislation. And a lot of it's been passed and signed into law. Well, I put my thinking cap on. Paul McCartney, of course, is a vegetarian, works closely with PETA, and he's a staunch animal protection advocate. So I asked the chief of staff at the time if I could reach out and say, hey, Senator Hedlund would like to recognize Paul McCartney for his work in animal protection. Of course, he goes, yeah, sure, go for it, because no way is this ever going to go anywhere. So long story short, I received a phone call. I was actually off, so the chief of staff texted me, you're going to get a call, you're going to want to answer it, it's about Paul McCartney. I go, yeah, okay, sure. And sure enough, I got a phone call, and it was an international number, and it was this nice British woman on the phone, Paul McCartney's personal assistant. She informed me she spoke with Paul that morning, and he was looking forward to meeting the senator and receiving the citation from the Commonwealth. So now, of course, through this entire story, I've yet to tell Senator Hedlund this is happening, but I informed Senator Hedlund that it's happening, and got the citation, and they brought us backstage, and he was very unassuming. He came out, he was super polite, he was super friendly, he was very complimentary to, again, then Senator Hedlund for the work he had done for animal protection. I will say the coolest thing for me personally from this whole experience was we obviously prepared a citation, and I'm with the member of the legislature. They're going to be the ones that present the citation. Senator Hedlund deferred that to me. So I got to read the citation from the Senate, and there's pictures, Paul McCartney over my shoulder, holding it as I'm holding it. I'm like, I can't believe I'm reading this to Paul McCartney. And I got to the end of it, and I quipped, I go, I know this isn't being knighted by the Queen of England, but it is the best we can do. And he said, well, it's not for knighthood, but it's for animals, so I may appreciate it just all the more. But honestly, he was great. I know a lot of times folks are like, oh, you want to be careful meeting your heroes. They might disappoint you. Paul McCartney was just this straight up, down to earth guy. He was super pleasant. And like I said, he was very unassuming. He just kind of just strolled out, and I'm kidding, like, from me to you, like there's Paul, the Beatles song, not even pun intended, but from me to you, there's Paul McCartney. And I stood upright. Senator Hedlund made a joke. He brought smelling salts to revive me in case I fainted. I didn't faint. I stood upright. And the last bit of it, the coolest part was, so the only part where you could tell you were meeting a pretty high-end celebrity was no phones, no cameras. So they had their own photographers, and they actually recorded it. And it's on YouTube. So one of the coolest things about it was several weeks go by, and I think I was in a store, and I bumped into someone I know, and I'm not friends with him on Facebook or anything. So he goes, how did you meet Paul McCartney? And I tell the story. I go, well, wait a minute. How do you know I met Paul McCartney? He goes, you're on his YouTube channel. And it's still up there today. It's got about 100,000 views. I'm about 99,000 of them, but it's still up there today. So it was great. And I, it's interesting, you asked that, but I always use that, whether I'm in job interviews or talking to voters about running for office. I found my way to completing what was probably considered to be a pretty impossible objective. And I used creativity to get there. But it was great to meet him, and I'll talk about that till the day I die.
It's a really interesting story.
Yeah.
Can't believe he came out all the way here to do that.
Well, he was in concert, so he was on tour.
Ah.
Yeah, so it was at Fenway Park. It was before his show at Fenway. I actually have a radio show on WATD, so I keep saying I've been trying to get him on the radio show. That hasn't quite worked out, but I will still keep persisting and keep asking. But yeah, he was on tour. It was back in 2013. They were making a stop in Boston, so that was how it all came about.
That's a really cool story. He's probably larger than life when you meet him.
He is. But like I said, like he was so unassuming. Like you would not believe you're meeting, a former member of the Beatles. And of course, I'm thinking to myself, like, this guy worked with John Lennon and George Harrison and Ringo Starr and all the other, musicians he's worked with over the years. And for me personally, and I think I speak for any Beatles fan or any music fan. I mean, music's very important to me. I love music. But I think for folks for music, and especially specific musicians that touch their lives, Paul McCartney for me has been a very meaningful part of he's been the soundtrack of my life. Even though I'm 36, I mean, the Beatles came and went well before I was born. God bless John Lennon, he was assassinated before I was born, right? So it's not like I ever had an opportunity to see the Beatles, but, for me to just be able to personally tell Paul McCartney, and I did, what he's meant to me, what his music has meant to me, whether I'm happy or feeling down about something or whatever, I can put on that playlist and it puts me in a great mood again. And candidly, that's what his music and the Beatles' music was great about. It was the most used word in any Beatles song across their entire catalog is love, right? Mm-hmm. So it was great to be able to convey to him just what he's meant to me. And it sounds kind of hokey to say that because he's a celebrity, but again, he took a meeting with us, and I think for folks who really love music, no matter what it is, no matter what the genre is, folks really connect with it. And if you connect with an artist, to be able to then meet that artist and say, hey, just thank you for putting that out into the world. And and it's again cliche because he's heard it for 60 plus years now, but to be able to have told him that personally was very nice for me. And I get a great picture, and it's of him and I, that it's in my apartment, it's on my desk at work, it's on my phone, it's everywhere, and I show anybody that's willing to listen. I tell them that story. So, but yeah, it was great.
That's awesome. So as we kind of wind down here, I wanted to bring it back to running for office, obviously. Why are you the best candidate?
I'm the best candidate because I bring to bear a lot of knowledge with regard to the county currently. I certainly have an excellent understanding of the budget. I work professionally in real estate, so I had predicted well into my first term that we were going to begin to have revenue issues towards the tail end of my first term, knowing that candidly you can only refinance so many people into 2.5% mortgages before you're out of people to refinance, right? So that I am uniquely prepared for that. I've already fostered relationships. I'm honored to have the endorsement of the sheriff and the district attorney, my colleague Commissioner Wright, as well as Senator O'Connor, former Senator Hedlund, and over 40 selectmen, select board members, counselors, and other local elected officials, because we've worked well together and we've collaborated together. Plymouth County, with ARPA, those federal funds that I had mentioned earlier, that program setting, Plymouth County is going to be at a very pivotal point in its history and in its recent history. We need to reelect myself, candidly, because I bring to bear the knowledge and the commitment to putting my head down, doing the work, but also the ability to be able to say no and to keep the county within its means. Far too often now, I think it's very difficult for people to be able to politely say no and stick with that. Mm-hmm. We've been able to do that at the county level because we have to, as I explained earlier. So having that knowledge and understanding and background of the county's budget and the county's finances are why I'm best equipped for re-election to the board. And again, I've already worked so well with my colleagues as well as those across the county that have all endorsed and support my campaign because they know that I can do that work. And if folks do want to learn more, you can visit me. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. My number is 617-827-3457. And you can visit votevalanzola.com.
Wonderful. I just want to say thank you for being here today. We wish you the best of luck. Yeah. And that's going to do it for this episode of Meet the Candidates. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Make sure you're registered to vote and you get out and exercise your right to vote. So Election Day is November 3rd?
November 5th.
November 5th. I'm sorry, everybody.
Okay, early voting starts October 17th, and a lot of folks already have their ballots in hand too. So
wonderful. Yeah. Get out and vote, folks, and we'll see you in the next episode.